Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I am going to be filming my last TBR, not just of the year, but probably for next year as well, because I low-key have decided to not do TBRs next year. At least not monthly TBRs. But that's not here yet, next year isn't here yet. So let's talk about what my reading plans are in December. And today, by the way, for once I have something to drink here. I have a coffee because I'm tired and I just got my coffee machine for my new flat, and so yeah, I just had to try it out. So with this TBR, once again, because I stopped doing that like a few TBRs back, a few months back, with this TBR, with this last TBR, I am not gonna have nonfiction. I kind of just, the nonfiction thing got too much for me currently, but yeah, I will try to start it again next year, but I don't want to stress for the last month of the year. So first let's start with rereads that I have planned for December, and I only have one, and that is Ink Death. This one is the third book in the Ink Heart series by Cornelia Funke. I am now finally almost done. Well, not almost done. I have 300 pages left, to be honest, so I'm like not even 2/3 done, but I am gonna be done soon, finally, with Ink Spell, the second book in the Ink Heart series, and so I only have Ink Death left to reread, and then I can continue on to the new book in the series. Ink Death is the only book in the series that I have never reread, actually. The first two books I have reread a bunch, but the third book came out quite late after I had already read or had the first two books for at least a couple of years, I think. And back then I only read it once. I don't remember liking it that much. I remember there were some things about it that I found quite weird. However, I'm excited to see how my perspective has changed on it after, I don't know, 15 years probably. So yeah, I am very excited. There's like, weirdly enough, I have quite a few, like I remember quite a bit from what happened in this book, but none of the context of the scenes. What is the Ink Heart series about though? The Ink Heart series, for those of you who don't know, is a middle grade YA series written by a German author, and in this series we follow Maggie and her father Mo. And the two of them have been inseparable ever since Maggie was a small child. Mo is a bookbinder, so he always binds books, and he taught Maggie to love reading and to love books. However, there is one thing that Mo has never done for her, and that was to read books to her. And when one rainy night a stranger appears in front of Maggie and Mo's home, Maggie might find out why that is. And yeah, I adore this series. The series was what made me fall in love with reading as well, and so yeah, I'm excited to reread this one. So next, I'm gonna have quite a few series continuations actually this month. The next book I have is the buddy read that we have for my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, and that buddy read is The Battle Drum. The book club, by the way, is all about reading fantasy written by women and genderqueer folks, and every month I upload a poll to decide what the buddy read will be for the next month. And for December, The Battle Drum won. This is the sequel to The Final Strife, the second book in, I believe it's called The Ending Fire, not The Ending Sea, The Ending Fire trilogy by Sara El Arifi. I read the first book last year and quite enjoyed it. The second book came out this year and I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, and so we're gonna be reading it for December. This book is adult fantasy, kind of like in that in-between space between YA and adult, so I do think that in terms of the characterizations of the characters and some of the writing, it has YA appeal. However, within the content matter, especially with how brutal a lot of the first book was, it's definitely in the adult sphere. And in this series, we have this world where every few years, I think every 10 or 20 years or something like that, there is this big competition to see who will become the next kind of leaders of this people. This civilization is split up into 3 parts. You have 3 different people groups set apart by blood. The red bloods are the leaders. They are the, not necessarily the nobility, but they are the only ones within the society who are basically treated as full members of society and as humans. You have the blue bloods, who are the servants, and then you have the ghost bloods, who basically aren't just slaves, but they are also mutilated upon birth. So blue bloods and ghost bloods are treated absolutely terribly. Red bloods are treated normally, and the red bloods are the ones that are able to take part in this competition. However, at the start of this book, I don't remember when, like 10 or 15 years ago, children were kidnapped, red-blooded children. They were kidnapped by rebels and then raised and trained to take part in the next competition and to save the blue bloods by winning the competition and then being partial to the blue bloods rather than the red bloods, even though they themselves were red-blooded children. And one of our main characters is such a child. However, she somewhere along the way has gotten quite off track. And so now that the competition is about to roll around again, it's just, she needs to get back on track. And so yeah, I really found the first book intriguing. There were also some twists and turns and some revelations by the end of the book that make me very excited to see where this one is gonna go. Another sequel that I have that I need to read in December is Kushals Mercy by Jacqueline Carey, which is the 3rd book in Imriel's trilogy, which was the 2nd trilogy within the Kushals Legacy universe. The first one being Phaedra's trilogy, and then the 3rd one is gonna be Nama's trilogy. I don't think it's called Nama's trilogy, but the 3rd trilogy doesn't have Kushal at the beginning anymore, so it's Nama's whatever. So yeah, this one I did, with a couple of other booktubers, start a buddy read or like a read along for the entire Kushals Legacy series, and we're taking 2 months per book. To be honest, not everyone is still reading the books. However, there still are quite a few of us, or like a couple of us at least, who keep on reading the books. And these books are so easy and fast to read. It's incredible. Like, you could probably do even a book per month, but with these being between like 750 and 950 pages, it would still be, you know, quite dense. So I do think that the 2-month time space thing is quite good. Anyway, this one, as I said, is the 3rd book in Imriel's trilogy, because it's a kind of Farseer type thing where you can't really talk about the 2nd trilogy without spoiling some of the 1st trilogy. The 1st trilogy follows Phaedra, who is a courtesan spy. She was born into one of the night courts within this country, who are basically like everyone who is in the night courts is a courtesan. However, she has also been trained as a spy, and through that has gotten into the politics of her country and has somewhat, you know, been caught in a lot of the intrigues in which she would not have been caught if she had been just a courtesan. And so then the 2nd trilogy follows one of the characters that we're introduced to in the 1st trilogy. I'm really enjoying it. I really enjoyed the 2nd book. I do think I talked about it in my recent wrap-up type video. It's just, I love Imriel a lot, so I'm excited to see where his trilogy ends and then to continue on with the Nama trilogy. Since we were just now talking a lot about sequels before we get to the last book that I want to read in December, I thought we'd do my series TBR chart now. This TBR chart that I recently updated since moving holds all the series on my shelves that I currently have not finished, where there are further books out in the series, obviously, and that I still intend on finishing. And every month I am going to, or I pull one of the series from this TBR chart, which, by the way, even if I don't do monthly TBRs next year, I will continue on with the TBR chart. I probably will just pull the next book in my wrap up. So what series do I have here? I have, maybe quite fitting because the new book recently came out, I have The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. I don't know if technically I can now count the series as being done once I have read Inheritance, which is the 4th book, which technically was the last book that I was still missing, or if I'm gonna have to say that I will have to, you know, also read Murtagh. But yeah, anyway, I will continue on with The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Although I do think that most people have heard of The Inheritance Cycle, at least most people who watch me. The Inheritance Cycle is one of the earliest kind of YA fantasy series that was published at a time where the YA genre hadn't really established itself that much yet. And it's set in this world where you have a tyrant who kind of killed all dragon riders a bunch of times ago in this big war. He also basically killed all the dragons except his dragon and the dragons of his followers. And so the only dragons that we know of that are left are those dragons, plus he has 3 dragon eggs, one of which was stolen by the rebellion, and somehow it ends up in the hands of a young farmer boy, and it, you know, the dragon comes out of the egg and it bonds with that farmer boy. And so now this boy called Aragon kind of finds himself in the center of this rebellion against this tyrant. So yeah, that's it. I do really enjoy the 1st book. It has a soft spot in my heart because it's the first proper high fantasy that I ever read, and so I do really enjoy it. Although even when the 2nd book first came out, which, you know, that's how long ago I read those books, I already didn't like it to the point that I never continued on. I then finally reread the 1st book and also the 2nd book. The 1st book I had reread a couple of times throughout the years, but I reread the 1st book and the 2nd book a few years back. Finally got to the 3rd book, I think in 2022, in early 2022 it must have been. And then I didn't continue on to the 4th book, but now we'll see about it. So leave in the comments down below, do you think, if I have read Inheritance, should I count this series as finished, or should I also read Murtagh? And then the last book that I have left on my December TBR is a book that is kind of half reread, half not, and it's Maiden Mother Crone by Joanne Harris. And this is a bind-up of all the short novella type stories. They're like all about 150 pages-ish that Joanne Harris wrote based on the child ballads. So you have Orpheia, you have The Blue Salt Road, and you have A Pocketful of Crows. I own and have read Orpheia and A Pocketful for Crows. I will reread them once I start this book. And then The Blue Salt Road I have not read yet, and so that one I will read for the first time. Additionally, there's also a couple of more short stories in here set in the same world as Joanne Harris's short story collection Honeycomb, which is kind of set in the same world as the 3 longer stories. So there's parallels there, but you know, it's more set in the same type of magical realm. And yeah, I love Joanne Harris. Joanne Harris is one of my absolutely favorite writers and storytellers out there. So I cannot wait to get to this. I love just, I don't know if you can see it because it does kind of glare a little bit, but it's this kind of cloth bound gilded book with an absolutely gorgeous cover. Inside you also have a bunch of illustrations. I have my cup here again. Wait, let me put away my cup with coffee. So you have a bunch of illustrations inside as well. I believe this one must be from the Blue Salt Road. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I will still get a physical edition of, like, you know, a single edition of the Blue Salt Road as well, because I do want to own all of them and it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I'm very excited for this one. I am so excited. And yeah, that was it for my monthly TBR for December. Tell me in the comments down below if you have any thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned that I want to read. As always, if you're interested in reading any of the books or buddy reading any of the books, I am completely open to that. I've actually done a few buddy reads before with some of my subscribers because, I don't know, I just enjoy buddy reading and thinking or like talking about the books with someone as I read them. And so if you're interested in doing that, leave me a comment or DM me on Twitter or anything. If you're interested in joining our buddy read for the Battle Drum or for Kushals Mercy, the Discord to my book club where both of those buddy reads are happening will be left down below as well. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing, and all the links to my social media and to my Discord are down below, so go and check those out. Bye!